going up. Others in the capital district have went down. But even those that have gone up, with the exception of a few like Malta and others that are growing really fast, their emissions have still gone down. So.
Yeah, you probably said this. Z has to reset the live stream because the quality was pretty bad. So if we want to just delay. Oh, is it good? Okay, thanks, Z. Never mind. Carry on.
Okay. Next slide. I don't know how many slides I have left, actually. Okay, so I just threw this one because the Global Research Center is an important point source. This is the biggest industrial source that you have. This one is big enough where it's a statutory reporter. It reports its emissions to the EPA, to a greenhouse gas reporting program they have, and as well as to DEC for air quality and other purposes. So you can find and track the emissions here. This is about 20,000 tons, which again is the largest chunk of your industrial sector. But interestingly, and we've seen in the news, and Laura's mentioned the same thing, is that they're, like any industry, they're retooling for this clean energy economy. They are working on carbon capture and storage and other things. So we don't want to call in that industry out and say you're a bad guy because you're creating emissions. That's just part of our society. They're actually all appear to be working towards solutions as well and interested in transforming and providing things. Carbon capture and storage would obviously, that technology would be used at like the cement plants we talked about when you're creating carbon dioxide from cement manufacturing. The only way you can stop doing that is to put carbon capture and storage on it. So these are companies like this company is working on those solutions. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Next slide. We did check out some of the indicators, sustainability indicators here for the town before this presentation. So electric vehicles are registrations here. This is the zip codes for Niskayuna. This data is available publicly, and they are growing. So it looks like you had 163 registered in 2024. I'm sorry, that's kind of blurry, very hard to see, but it's 100 and some. So you have 150 people have purchased and registered electric vehicles here. That's quite a lot, and it's growing. And I know the town is working on EV, doing a whole bunch of promotions. So it's clearly making an impact. And in the world of climate planning, we can instantly turn that into a number. If you have 150 vehicles, we know about typically a gas vehicle would be about 3 tons per year per car. It's about 400 or 500 tons. And you cut that by a third. So you're probably saving 300 tons per year. Not that these tons mean the gallon thing, but it's significant, which means even this little notched number here is making a difference. Okay, next slide, please. Solar installations are also growing. This is the county. We could not get the information easily. We do have some data for Niskayuna, but the installations are growing, and they've grown significantly since 2010. They were basically non-existent. So again, each of these installations notch down emissions. Every kilowatt hour produced is displacing a fossil fuel need from the grid and is creating savings. So everything here is adding up. I don't know how many building permits you're getting for that stuff, but we found like 30 installations in the public record. I don't know if that makes sense. We thought that was low here, but we have.
It might be because a lot of residents in Niskayuna have already installed solar. A lot of them. We have a lot of solar.
You have a lot of solar. See, yeah. It's interesting because we have a record of information from NYSO and from the utilities connection grid or queue, and we only found records of 30 installations, which didn't make sense to us here. So we didn't put that in because we don't think that's true. We think there's a lot more.
On a home, is that considered an installation?
Yes.
Or are you talking about industrial?
Yep, anything. So home versus standalone versus large. I mean, what's your guess here? What do you guys think?
We get like maybe 30 a year.
Okay.
For a long time. And we have them like on top of like the commercial buildings in Mohawk Commons.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, your install capacity is a lot more than we found. We were doing this research before this presentation. I'm like, nah, this doesn't seem right. We can't put that in there. So we do think it's more, and whatever that install capacity is, we would be able to translate right into your emission reductions you're getting from that.
Yeah, and a related question, does community solar have any impact on this? Like, for example, obviously we pay a national grid bill, but then we also opt into, community solar. And is that factored in?
Yes, as long as they're updating, originally the rules of community solar were a little murky because they weren't tracking those savings correctly. So, you know, you're generating solar in a different part of the state or in an ISO zone, you have to get credit for it. They're changing the rules now so that if you opt into community solar or community opts in, the consumption of the town is banked and recorded in something called NIGATS, which is the state's energy emission portfolio tracking whatever thing. And so now it is reasonable. So if you do opt into community solar, you would be getting that credit. But if I understand it, the amount of renewables available through community choice aggregation or these kinds of community solar aren't as much as they were because there's competition. But anyway, so that's as long as they're banking, as long as your company is banking those credits in NIGATS, then it would count. So anyway, next slide, please. I feel like I'm running out of slides. Okay, yeah, so this is the next steps. So in your Climate Smart Communities commitment, you're working on the government operations plan, you've done the inventories for government operations in community. The next steps, if you plan to take them, would be to do your community climate action or plan or implementation steps. And that's, again, not all communities do it. You can just start implementing things. You don't need to formalize it. But a community climate action plan is a engagement and public outreach to let the citizens know that there's an interest in this and bring people together to start talking about policy options that you have to help the transition to electrification or to other emission reduction strategies. So, community action plans they're not government operations. You don't own it and control it. Communities, this is a consensus-based thing. You need a lot of outreach. There's going to be a lot of people interested. There'll be pushback. There's all sorts of things that happen. But that is the next step. And the inventory that I've just presented to you today is really get the word out, get the people in the room. That's sort of the next step. And that may be something you'll engage later down the road. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, first, if you just look at the two big sources, which is the buildings and the vehicles, electrification is always good. We're running up against in this unit, is it completely natural gas here? I assume you have a natural gas. Does National Grid cover everything here? So every home is national?
There's a couple places that don't have natural gas. Like my neighborhood is propane and oil, but not very many.
Yeah, so we're seeing propane and oil, the economics of heat pumps are already beating them. So they're starting to transform naturally. Like HVAC contractors are running around with their heat pumps now starting to sell this, especially if you're in an oil area. Natural gas is not as compelling. They're still running up against barriers in getting conversions in natural gas areas. So that would be part of your discussion. That is probably your biggest source, is to think about how can you get residents to convert, what strategies are available, and why is it not happening? That is a giant bang for your buck. If you look at your inventory, that's probably 25% of it. The other part, again, is electrification of vehicles. It feels like you have the advantage as Niskayuna, and this is a guess, so I could be wrong. And my colleague here is from Niskayuna, so she'll know. But it's, if I look at, I do these presentations in Troy and Albany, and there's, an off-street parking problem. Trying to figure out how to electrify charging and provide that to people is a difficult prospect. It feels like here you've got more off-street and garage-based parking, which is really the challenge, so getting, mobilizing people to start increasing and buying electric vehicles would be a great solution. And you might have the ability to do it because people can actually charge their things. You don't have the barriers that some of the cities have. So I don't know. There's a lot of things. It's a lot more than just that, but I'm just answering off the top of my head. Yeah.
So I just have a question, and it's based on the lawn equipment that people use from contractors, and
Yes.
more specifically the blowers. So I find that in Niskayuna, we're disproportionately using services where they use the that are the high-powered ones
Okay,
that are that are very bad for the environment.
yes, the
And
two strokes.
yeah, the two strokes. Yeah, sorry. And so I guess my question is like, how is any of that taken into consideration?
Yes. In fact, I thought I had a slide on that. So there was, maybe I didn't, but I'm glad you asked the question because it's what we always find surprising and people find surprising is that the emissions from all of that stuff, that's off-road equipment and blowers and all this stuff, it's embedded in the transportation sector of the inventory because it's a transportation fuel. But surprisingly, it's about 10% of the transportation sector, which means it's a lot. It's like, so the emissions from like all of this off-road stuff is a lot more than people realize. Like it's all coming through really low quality engines. So the emissions from those are equal to what a car produces. Like a two-stroke engine produces more pollution than a car burning 10 times the amount of fuel. Like cars are actually pretty well designed for pollution now, but not small equipment. So there's a reasonable, compelling argument in the data to say, yeah, if we do climate action plan, we're looking at 10% of our emissions are just from this stuff. They do create pollution. It's a viable and definitely important approach to reducing emissions and having the co-benefits of not having those problems. So 10% is surprising. People don't realize it, but it's more than you think.
Something like encouraging, like,
Yes. Yes, that would be likely an important part of a climate action plan is that you're attacking that 10%. And it's something that generally the public, I mean, at least in my experience, seems to appreciate, especially in a city where you have a lot of nuisance related to. But, you know, that's part of the whole stakeholder engagement of a climate plan is that you'll get people who want that, people who don't want that. And so, but yes, in math-wise, it would definitely make a significant impact. The delta of, yes. So we, it's called off-road. And so we use a model that DEC uses called off-road to evaluate the extent of usage of equipment across like 30 categories. So it's not just lawn equipment, it's construction equipment, it's a bunch of other stuff that's off-road vehicles. And so, yeah, so it's based on the data that we have suggests it's about 10%. Lawn equipment would be less. It's by counties. So it's a county-based model. So yeah, it wouldn't necessarily be specific to Niskayuna, but you know, I think the numbers would likely pan out. If it was something that you were interested in pursuing and were beginning to talk to the public about it and needed better information and not just this level of, we could probably do that. But you know, we're at the high level averages.
I had a related question on that, please. The town recently made the decision not to mow a large segment of a town-owned park called Blatnick Park.
Okay.
And I wanted to know if we can get a number, say, mowed that previously used to be mowed, that an acre of lawn is no longer mowed, on an annual basis, how much save in dollar amount, because sometimes dollar amounts are important as well as the pounds and greenhouse gases and all that. So is that number findable with a fair degree of accuracy anywhere? Do you know that number?
So yes, of course it's findable. I've actually done that calculation for multiple communities. So, but each scenario is different. The number of acres, the way they used it. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a very easy calculation to make. So, you know, in a nutshell, by not mowing that property, you're going to be saving gasoline or diesel, whatever you're mowing it with. And there's rules of thumb for estimates per acre or just your own experience knowing that. And then again, for the example of the gallon thing, it's then easy to take that gallons and translate that into an emissions amount you're saving, and then a cost based on the amount of fuel you're saving. So there are rules of thumb. And I wish I don't remember them off the top of my head, but that's not a difficult calculation to make. So if you know exactly how much acreage you're saving and how often you mowed it, we could easily find an estimate for you that's pretty accurate. We'll incorporate that in our inventory.
May I follow up with you offline
Sure.
on that? Because if we have the number like on a per acre basis,
Right.
then it's a simple calculation to
Yes.
do it for the entire stuff. I would be grateful for help.
Yeah, and this is actually up because we're actually contracted to do the government operations climate plans. That will be one of your measures. So we know your 1,700 tons in the town. We'll say, in your department, there's going to be a low mow reduction measure, and we'll do those calculations in there. We'll show how much you're saving and notch that off of all of your town operations.
Yeah, and in addition to the pound measurement of the gases, it would be nice to have the dollar amount
Yes.
in terms of savings.
Yes, and we will include that. In fact, yeah. So I didn't include this in the presentation, but we do often talk about the energy costs because they're compelling. Like your energy spend in the town. Do you know how much you're spending on energy? Here
We
overall?
did have that in our government action plan. We had both carbon and we had dollars.
Yeah, I had it in there, and so it's a
Yeah.
lot. I don't remember, but local governments often don't realize if you add up all your energy costs, it costs all your gasoline, your diesel, off-road, on-road, electricity, everything. It's a lot. It could be $1 million. Who knows? And saving you 10 to 20% of it's a staff person often, and these are hidden costs that people don't realize you're spending a lot. So yes, I will definitely follow up, and we'll be including that in the next round of work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What sector do our schools fall into?
The sector would be commercial in this particular inventory product. So like a school, it's a governmental organization. It might develop its own emission inventory and its own action plan. The government operations portion of our work is only the things that are owned and controlled by the town. But if you're doing a community inventory, you would definitely want to engage the school, in this process and get them involved, in the planning portion of it.
Okay, and then like the buses are still considered commercial.
Yeah, yes. So in the community inventory analysis, the macro, it's only residential, commercial, industrial. So everything that's not a manufacturing industry and not a home is bundled into commercial. So if you're interested in schools, you would want to work with them separately and pull them out. Just like government operations, we know you're 1% with a detailed study. Schools are probably 1% or probably more, probably like 3. So.
Yeah, we spend $795,000 on all energy sources.
Okay. So about $800,000.
Mhm.
Yeah. So shaving off, 10% is 80,000. And these are kinds of savings that can be done, without a lot of thinking. Just like this, an idea of just not mowing something that you didn't need to mow, right? Like just those ideas, you don't need to invest a bunch of money in technology for that. You can just save the money. So that was a good idea. Okay. That's it for this presentation. Any other questions then?
Can we get a copy of the presentation?
Yeah, it's
The presentation, I'll email it to you guys. Yeah.
The file.
Email it to
yeah. So there's the report. There's a PowerPoint presentation. We also have the data file too. So for those of you who are data people, you can go in and play with it as well. So thank you so much. Any other questions or?
Thank you for taking the
Thank you very
time.
much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much. We'll let you return back to your normal programming.
Okay, we took the meeting a little bit out of order. John, did you want to address the board at all? Okay. All right, then why don't we move on to the EAFs? And the first EAF we have seen before, this is 2025-05, 3900 State Street. It's the Kia Matthews car dealer, and they have a proposal before the board of a building addition and a parking lot extension. We've seen this project multiple times. We actually made a motion, a positive declaration on this project about a year ago or so, 2 years ago. And they've come back and there's several iterations. So we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I thought it would be good to discuss it. So,
We don't have to. We could. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Because the reason we had to last month make a decision this month is because they had to go to the zoning board for the lot line adjustment. But they have changed their proposal to no longer need an area variance. So the only board now that would be making the seeker determination is the town board. And they probably wouldn't make their seeker determination until August. But if you feel like you're ready, you still could. But Chairman is right. We do kind of get the relief of a month if we need it. Yeah, so before when we looked at it, the lot line adjustment, so the boundaries of the special use permit required an area Board of Appeals. So they had,
Yes.
this lot was 50 feet and it needed to be 80. So it's kind of more pie shaped. It's 80 feet in the front and 60 feet in the back. But it no longer needs an area variance. So that takes that board off the table. Now you're just, yeah, I think, the CAC was pretty clear that they didn't support that lot line adjustment. It did get forwarded to the planning board. The planning board was also, actually, I think the planning board had a very split vote, but, I think actually voted in favor of the lot line adjustment, but between the conflicting boards and whether or not the zoning board would have approved it, I think it would have been really difficult. So they pulled it and they just made the lot compliant. So it does mean that the lot for 33 South Fagan Ave is bigger. Bigger in the front, smaller in the back and bigger in the front. But I don't think the area changed a whole lot.
I had a great many follow-up questions.
Yeah.
May I go through
Go
them
ahead.
one by one? First, just to confirm, there is currently nothing at 25 South Fagan.
25 South Fagan is currently vacant.
Okay. The zoning designation C-H is commercial and highway.
Yeah.
Who owns 33 South Fagan right now?
The Kia
Okay.
Hyundai or Kia.
The applicant, basically.
Matthews Kia owns 33, 25, and 17.
33, but 25 is a vacant lot, but they still own it.
Yeah.
There is a 41 South Fagan that could be like completely isolated. Did we hear anything from those residents or during the privilege of the floor or anything like that?
Did not hear from 41 South Fagan Ave. We do hear from the person across the street who on this map's kind of hard.
That's
But
26.
The person who, her family lives over on this side. And she is still not in favor, I would say, generally speaking.
Okay. And in this part of Niskayuna, like, is it considered lower priced relative to, old Niskayuna and Route 7 corridor and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it meets like an environmental justice income threshold,
Okay.
but we do consider this to be more affordable housing in Niskayuna. A lot of people don't even realize this is Niskayuna. It is South Colony School Districts.
Okay.
But yeah, it is more affordable housing in Niskayuna.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
And the 33 South Fagan, okay, this question is a little complicated.